Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, partnering with donors from all walks of life to improve southeastern Virginia through grants, scholarships, and leadership initiatives. Learn more at hamptonroadscf.org.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice to start a career. Gain skills in fields like cybersecurity and education. More at tncc.edu.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Barbara Ham-Lee. A very special Another View broadcast today, a behind-the-scenes look at the intersection of life and art. It's called Inheritance Project, a national arts organization that helps unconnected neighbors navigate challenging civic conversations and turn that work into live theater. They are working here in Hampton Roads, and guest host Lisa Godley will take you on their journey. I will not participate in the content of today's show. To make sure we adhere to journalistic standards, I'm stepping away to avoid any potential conflict of interest. I am a facilitator with the St. Paul's Transformation Project through my company, Sharing Info, LLC. And that topic could come up during today's program. But nothing precludes me from asking you to become a member of WHRO Public Media and support what you love, which we know is Another View. I'm here with Lisa Godley and Dr. Barry Graham to encourage you to call 1-800-940-7170. Become a member, just like all of us are. Lisa, I know I'm in the control room in your seat. A very different place for me today, but encourage people. Why should they give and become a member of WHRV, WHRO, and particularly to support us here at Another View?
I mean, where else do you get this kind of programming, these amazing conversations that we are able to bring people each and every week? I mean, I have so many favorite shows, and you know how I love going live,
yes.
Being out in the field, out at Fort Monroe, where we get to actually sit down and talk to our listeners.
And we really hope we can do that again soon. As soon as we can get a control on this variant, this virus, this thing that keeps going on. But
Absolutely.
We really want to get back to being live, hopefully in 2022.
We're keeping fingers crossed.
Absolutely we are. And we are so blessed to have Dr. Barry Graham. Dr. Barry Graham.
Don't hear that title too often. I used to hear it hundreds of times a day.
But Dr. Barry Graham joins us every single Thursday. Not only does he bring us help in answering the phones and helping us to produce that section of our show, he also brings in incredible treats every week. And he feeds us. And so we're very, very happy. 1-800-940-7170 is the number to call to become a member, to join all of us and the more than 22,000 members of WHRO Public Media, families out there who listen to us, who depend on reliable news and information and really interesting conversations, and that's what we try to bring you every week. 1-800-940-7170. Get ready to give the wrong number.
I was going to say, probably want to give the number for the call-in. That's what comes to you so very naturally. So, you mentioned those conversations, and it's the conversations that we so desperately need inside our community. I'm especially thinking we just came off of 1A, and they had a very, very important conversation about school shootings going on. Mm-hmm. And then we roll into Another View, and yet another critical conversation that is so important to our community and so vital in today's society. And it is this radio station that is a conduit for these conversations with Another View. So we encourage listeners to please call in your support, show your support for the radio station, and especially for Another View, which I was always a fan, but now that I am here so much more than I used to be. I was just part-time. Now that I'm full-time here, I am even more so of a fan of Barbara Ham-Lee and Another View.
Oh, I really appreciate that. 1-800-940-7170. Okay, so let me sweeten the pot a little bit. We have a $2,000 challenge.
Yay!
So if we raise $2,000 in this hour, then we will be matched dollar for dollar. But you know what, my Another View listeners? We do so much better than that.
Always.
Every drive,
Always.
we do so much better than that. And we know that you will come through this time also. 1-800-940-7170. Or you can go to WHRO.org and make your pledge of support there. Lisa, what's your favorite show? Do you remember? Do you have an absolute favorite?
Well, gosh, there are so many. I loved when we were at the Revolutionary War Museum at Yorktown. Got to meet the Buffalo Soldiers and talk about that whole aspect of American history. But you know me, I love when we're live in the community. So I could just pick, a handful of shows where we were out in the community. I just love it. So
absolutely. 1-800-940-7170. I keep giving the number because I want people to just pick up the phone and make that call. We've got about a minute left before we get into another view. I actually get to sit back and watch the show in action.
I was going to say, now this is going to be a very different. Weird. Yeah, it looks very strange. I walk into the studio here. I'm like, wait a minute, what's going on here?
But just in case you're just now joining us, there could be a potential conflict of interest with my personal company, Sharing Info LLC, and so I am stepping away so that we can adhere to the journalistic standards that we have here at WHRO Public Media. So you're in great hands with Lisa Godley. But in the meantime, go ahead, give us a call, 1-800-940-7170. Make your pledge of support. We have a $2,000 challenge, which means if you call in right now, if you pledge $60, then that's going to be matched another $60. So
nice.
Let's get that money and let's get ready for another view.
Discussing today's topics from an African American perspective, this is Another View.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Another View producer Lisa Godley, filling in for Barbara Ham-Lee. Over the years, Barbara and I have brought you at least a dozen Race Let's Talk About It town halls. In those community conversations, we provide a safe space to talk about the role race plays in the issues impacting our community. Well, my guests today take these important conversations a step further by transforming what's said into live theater. Now, this doesn't happen overnight. They've already spent time and will continue to spend time here in Hampton Roads talking to you about this region that we call home and the challenges we face. In fact, space is still available for tonight's salon, which gets underway at 6:30 p.m. at the Robin Hickson Theatre, 440 Bank Street in downtown Norfolk. It is free and open to the public, and I am told there will be food. But you do have to RSVP, and you can do so at info@vafest.org. That's info@vafest.org. If you'd like to be a part of today's conversation, pick up the phone and give us a call at 440-2665 or 1-800-940-2240. I am so excited about this conversation because the salon that I attended on Tuesday in Virginia Beach was just amazing. Now, people from diverse backgrounds and different ages sharing pieces of their journey and insight into what living here in Hampton Roads means to them. And joining me to get today's conversation started are two members of the Inheritance Project, Ariel Warmflash, who you will hear me refer to throughout the broadcast as Ari. Ari is a theater artist, educator, and organizer who uses her phenomenal storytelling and community building skills to facilitate some powerful conversations. She is joined by storyteller, activist, and the youngest Black director in Broadway history, Zhailon Levingston. I am so glad you're here. And he's, and last but not least, Jackie Glass, a Navy veteran, a podcaster, and a certified doer, who also participated in one of the more recent Inheritance Project salons and who has also been a guest on Another View before because of her podcast. So welcome back to Another View. Ari, I am going to start with you. For folks that have never heard of the Inheritance Project, how did all this come about?
Well, first of all, Lisa, thank you so much for having us on this show. And to Barbara, we are incredibly grateful to be invited here. So the Inheritance Project, and I'll say Inheritance spelled INHEIR, We've got the air right there in the middle. The Inheritance Project was begun over 6 years ago as an attempt to bridge community and community conversation, not just through the history of the place and the experiences of the people who lived there, but in relationship to an inherited wisdom or text. And the belief there was that we could learn more from each other, not just from our personal stories, but also looking at how we can be informed by the work. So we have worked now in over a dozen cities in America, and we are, as we say, a national organization. So our artists come from all over, but when we arrive to a city, we work together with them, with local artists, organizers, leaders, in order to collaborate to create this play. So how do we do that? What does that look like? What we do is something called devised theater. So whereas traditional plays begin with a script, we begin with questions or curiosity. And from then, we bring the questions to the place we're working, in this case, to the Hampton Roads region. And we work together with community members at every step of the process in something we call an open process. So rather than coming in and telling folks what Hampton Roads is like, we hold salons like the ones you participated in to invite people to tell us what their lives are like, to explore their experiences, stories, and how they understand the region. And that way we can learn about the place from the people who live here. We often say we come in with expertise in theater making, but what we ask is for expertise in your lives and experiences. And so that's really where the impetus of this comes. And because we're an open process, this isn't just a one-time thing where we meet with folks and then go away. We're here for 9 months. We started in September, actually before September, but COVID sort of got in the way of that. And we're here, and each step of the process, we invite community members in. So we start with these early conversations, gathering information and starting to hear themes and topics that come in. But as that information starts to get morphed into scripts, poetry, scenes, monologues, we bring those back to the community members, to the same folks that we met with before or new people, to show them what we're creating from theirs and make sure that it reflects and represents the work that they said.
Okay, so how did you come to choose Hampton Roads?
Oh, well, we are incredibly lucky because we're invited to places all the time. And so every time we're invited somewhere, we go to check it out to see what could be. We're really lucky that we have interest in our work, and we don't just open up an atlas and pick a point on the map. We're often invited. And so we were invited this time by a couple of major organizations that are still our partners, and that was Hands United Building Bridges, or HUB, a group of interfaith leaders who come together to have these conversations, by the Virginia Arts Festival, who is celebrating their 25th anniversary season this year in the spring. And then we've also been really lucky to meet with other people, but it was through those conversations with those early organizations that we learned that not only is this work already happening in this place, but these conversations are bubbling at the surface, and folks are ready to not just talk about it, but to do something with it. And one thing that's really exciting about our process is that it's entirely free. It's free to participate in every program. Our final box office is pay what you can. So money isn't a barrier to entry. And because it's really, really important that we don't just come in and try to create something and then leave, all of the box office proceeds that we make are returned and invested back in the community. They go back to local artists who can continue having conversations about these civic conversations that we're having in order to continue the work that's already on the ground. Because if we've learned anything from this Hampton Roads region, it is that people are working hard to bring these to the surface. And it's a real gift to be invited into that.
Okay. I want to clarify something because in the past 48 hours, at least 3 people I've mentioned a salon and they've been like, what? Never. So I was explaining that it was a community conversation.
Yeah.
But I want to find out, I know you guys have a long way to go, but I still want to find out, are you looking for a particular phrase? Because I know in the salon that I was able to participate in, you asked people to take a word or a phrase to describe your community. Are you looking for a reoccurring theme? Are you looking for a shared experience? Are you looking for a revelation?
Yeah, Lisa, you're giving away our secrets. That's how we start. No, it's not. It's an open secret, but we invite every person that we meet to tell us one word or phrase that they think of when it comes to their region. And it's exactly what you said. We're looking to see the themes that are rising, that are connected, and not only the things that get said in all of the rooms, but what doesn't get said in some rooms, where it gets said and where it doesn't. It's important for us to recognize, and something that we say in every space, is that everything that people experience is true, right? That even if we have contradictory words up on the board, those are coming from the experiences of people who believe that. And so it's up to us to see, how do we look at what comes to the surface. It's coined Sparklets by one of our co-founders, Chantal Pavageau. And I need to be very clear, while I am here representing the Inheritance Project, there are my co-artists, co-creators and founders of the Inheritance Project are Chantal Pavageau and John Adam Ross, two of the most brilliant artists that I've ever been lucky enough to work with. And also on the ground in with us now is Demetria Gerald, a brilliant costume designer. We have Martha Good, who's working with us as a sound designer, and also local people that are working with us. So really, this is an opportunity to bring together a bunch of different artists to come together to create something. And when we say salons, they're almost a little bit intentionally vague, which you've sussed out, because we really want to create space for it to be emergent, to see what comes up in the room and follow the creative paths and the themes that come up.
Okay. I have a question for Zhailon.
Yeah, please.
Zhailon, when we hear the Hampton Roads story, the final product in May, who will we see? Will we see Inheritance Project actors? Will we see a combination of Inheritance Project actors and local community folk? Or will we see all community folk? Help me here.
Yeah, this is a great question and a open-ended one at this stage of the process. We don't even know what the play is yet. We don't know how many people are in the play. We don't know how long it will be. But all of it is on the table. We don't come with a kind of determined aesthetic or predetermined set of participants. So there could be a world where you have a stage full of 50 people who are specifically from this community. There could be a world wherein we have 5 professional actors coming in representing composites of stories that we gather. And I think part of this next phase is really putting all the information that we have gathered so far in, through the filter of our collaborators and kind of seeing, what comes out, and then, creating a process wherein as much stays on the table as long as possible. And so, yeah, it's yet to be determined. But definitely the community's voice will be on stage in whatever configuration comes in May. The goal is for it to be a reflection of the community back to the community. So that is the number one intention.
Okay, now you've just directed your first Broadway play. Mm-hmm. How does directing something so structured,
right,
compared to something that's so open and experimental? What's that difference like?
Yeah, so at least for me, I try to be as community oriented as possible in both plans. And I guess a way that I would think about it is, Broadway is a pre-set machine. And what I'm trying to do at all times is figure out how to bring community into this place where, if you're not careful, can suck out all of the beautiful gems of community. And I think when you're not working in this structured machine industry and we're coming into community, it's about, okay, how do we use community to create a structure? And so it's kind of working on opposite ends of the pole there. Typically with devised work, you have more time. And I believe with more time, you have more choices. And so a question like yours about who's going to be on stage, I get to say, I don't know yet. On Broadway, you don't get to say that.
Yeah, you already know.
You already know. You have to know. There's a predestined kind of time clock that you have to always be adhering to. And here we get a lot more flexibility. We get a lot more opportunity to say, oh, we thought we were going this way, but we met this person who turned the ship that way, and this is the way we're going now. And to work with a team that is all adhering to that kind of ethos of just emergent storytelling and serving the community first, no matter what, makes it a very unique art making experience, because the art really gets to be ministry and really gets to be service as opposed to commerce.
Cool. All right, Jackie, I believe Tuesday at the salon, and you tell me if I'm wrong, I believe your word was redlining.
No.
Which was your word?
Prolific.
Okay. Tell me why you chose that word in its relationship to Hampton Roads.
Because Hampton Roads is busy doing a lot of things, right? For better or for worse. I think just hearing the culmination of just coming I say I'm a come here, not a from here. But the fact that there are these 7 cities, these 7 identities sort of staking their claim of who they are and how they are, and even people sort of just being like, this is how we do it here. This is how we do it. You know, like I think creatively and all the things, at least that I've come in contact in the area, the people are very busy. And busy in a productive way in some circumstances, but that prolificness, if that's even a word, it isn't always positive, but it also isn't always negative. So that's what I felt when I said prolific, because it's always something.
Okay. All right. I want you to, I know you can't really talk about a lot about what's happening here in Hampton Roads, but could you share a little about maybe even a past project that came together and some of the surprises you encountered in a particular community and things you had to address even?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I really love what Zhailon was talking about the flexibility and being able to allow things to move where they were. Our last play before this, so this piece that we're creating in Hampton Roads, as I said, we always connect our pieces to a inherited text or inherited wisdom. And in this place, it's the wisdom of the book of Exodus, or the story of Exodus. And this is actually our 4th Exodus project. We've looked at this book in several different contexts. For the first time in Harlem with recently incarcerated folks, looking at that precipice into freedom. When we were in Omaha, Nebraska, we were working with resettled refugees, looking at that moment of travel, of making that and resettling. And our latest play, which I'll tell you a little bit more about, was in Cincinnati, Ohio. We were looking at it this time, and we were just getting started. We had a trip in January, a trip in March of 2020, and then as we all know, the world changed. But we had already begun this process. We had already invited people into a process of sharing their stories. And we had met with some incredible people who had incredible things to say. And in Cincinnati, it's much like the rest of the world, but it also has its own set of problems. But as we started these conversations, we realized we couldn't, just because this pandemic had happened, we couldn't stop the process. We couldn't let down or ignore or forget about the people that we had already involved in the process. And so that play took sort of a turn and became an exploration specifically of white Jewish communities and Black communities in Cincinnati and the ways in which they intersect. And what we ended up creating, because it was we ended up creating an online performance. And in order to sort of bring the magic of theater to folks, we created a box, which was a ritual box, and in it came a Haggadah, which is the Jewish in the Jewish ritual of Passover Seders. There's a booklet that sort of takes you through it. So we created one of those for our play. We offered folks candles and feathers and ways to be a part of the ritual with us. So even though we couldn't all be together and sharing space, it's really important for us that folks feel invited into the story. So in that case, we've never done anything virtually. We've never done anything online. And I'll tell you that as a theater maker, making a film was a very different experience. But it gave us an opportunity to flex some creative muscles and follow the water where it led. And because of that, we really had to adjust our process, but it still led to something really meaningful. And so it was a really, really special project, and it was extra exciting to be able to close that and then get back on the ground here in Hampton Roads. So this was really a special coming back for us in a lot of ways.
Okay, cool. We're going to take a phone call now. Sherry's calling us from Portsmouth. Sherry, thank you for calling Another View.
Absolutely. Hey there, Ari, and all you Inheritance Project folks. This is Sherry Bailey.
Hi, Miss Sherry Bailey. Good to hear from you. We just saw you on Friday.
Yes, indeed. And I wasn't listening. I apologize for that, but a friend called and said, listen to Another View right away. You know, the Inheritance Project is there. And we had a wonderful experience with the Inheritance Project on this last Friday, December 3rd. And people were calling and emailing and Facebooking because they're now seeing the flyer, and they didn't see it before, but they're seeing it now. And they're like, that sounds wonderful. I'm so sorry I missed it. And indeed, they missed an opportunity to be able to kind of help look at our region from a more objective perspective, which was really wonderful because that allows you to see things that you weren't able to see before. And that's what you guys did with us, and we really appreciate what happened there.
Oh, thank you so much. We really appreciate being invited in. I mean, connecting with Sherry Bailey and Juneteenth Virginia was a really wonderful opportunity. And it's really important to us, as you talked about this. I mean, you mentioned this a little bit, Jackie, but, 7 cities is a lot of cities.
It's a lot of cities.
We are working really hard to try to be in all of them. So we had an opportunity to go to Portsmouth, and I want to shout out the Book Club, which was an incredible venue that hosted us, and they're doing wonderful work in that region. And it was just so wonderful to meet with folks from Portsmouth who had lots of thoughts about this. And when we first started this project, we thought it was going to be a Norfolk project. And then it was like, well, it's going to be Norfolk and Virginia Beach. And then it was like, well, it can't just be Norfolk and Virginia Beach. There's all these other places around it. So we're like, okay, we'll do Hampton Roads. And then we're like, well, some people call it the 757. Well, some people call it Tidewater. Well, some people call it Coastal Virginia. So it's like this identity. You were asking a little bit about themes, identity crisis, and being able to be with Sherry in Portsmouth and be with that community really gave us an insight into that city in a way that we don't hear when we don't hear from folks who live there, right? So it's a lot about something that we've learned on the ground is that there is both the experience of the people who are from that place and how they feel about it, and then their experience of people who don't come from that place and how they feel about it. So, Sherry, your invitation was so generous, and the folks that we met there were wonderful. And so, and you said they missed out, but they didn't. We're still here, and we can come back.
Exactly. And it will continue to grow because what you're doing impacts everyone, the entire region. As you said, 7 cities is a lot, and it's actually more than 7 cities. It's really 17 cities, towns, and counties.
That's right.
I just want to throw that in the mix there. But again, thank you for what you're doing because it's really important and it really makes a difference.
Oh, thank you for having us and for the work you're doing too.
All right, wonderful. That's just great. Jack, I have a question for you. Yeah. What was your aha, wow, or I never really thought about it that way moment during the salon that you attended?
Well, so it's funny when you say salon, I keep thinking that's the one place I avoid. I have short hair. I never go to the salon. I definitely have a girl barber. Anyway, but no, being there, for me, there was this mystery. I didn't know what I was walking into. So I didn't necessarily have any expectations of even what this was. But the second round of us providing our feedback, there was, and I don't want to give too much away, but there is an exercise that these brilliant people do with these words that we put into the air, and that sort of shifts your gaze on what is being.
I love that phrase. Go ahead.
On what is written, what is being written, and I felt like the process and aha moment was in hearing these words in not just a poetic way, but just giving them different values by marrying them together, right? Like, it made me think about my perceptions about what other people were saying very differently. Mm-hmm. And then it goes back to, this is probably why they're here, right? This is exactly why they're here. Like, okay, as somebody who's in this work, it's like, it was like, even I walk in with my bias. Even I walk in, like, we walk in with it, but we don't want it to lead. And I like the way they sort of disarmed us in that way. There was a real sense of just like, see what you guys are doing here. So I think my epiphany or my aha moment was that, that words, when put together, can change. The value can change, and each one here carries their own weight from every person in there. It was really profound to me. Definitely a whole experience.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate that. Now, when you're talking to different communities, this process can change up until how far in?
Oh, well, if you ask our director, Chantal, at some point, she would like for it to be codified. But, it can really change up until like quite the last minute. I mean, I think at that point the changes become more subtle. Hopefully there's no major wrenches that happen, but we do respond to the world around us, and as things change and adjust, we take that in. I think there is a process of both refining the work that we're gathering while still keeping an open mind so that we can have our own aha moments and revelations. But I mean, we go up the first weekend in May, and I imagine that there will be script changes up until the first week of May.
I mean, to Ari's point, to something she said earlier, I think another way of looking at it is the end of our process hopefully is the beginning of something else. And so we want the play, though it can have a very definitive feeling to it, an event, a play, you're coming to a thing, actually to be an invitation, that the play itself, and people talk about this about theater sometimes, but I think it's really apt for devised theater and community building theater. The play doesn't really begin until after the play. Right. The play begins, the drama of it, the impact of it, what it has to do in the world begins once people get into their cars and they drive away and they decide to call that person that they hadn't called before, or that office that they hadn't visited before, or that business that they hadn't patronized before. That's the play. And in that respect, it's never finished, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, everything that Zhailon says is correct and brilliant. And I'll say that in the nature of our open process, even when the play sort of feels like the final summation, because each part of our process is open and interactive, we even have a talk back after the final play.
Wow.
So it's not like you just see the performance and then you get in your car and talk about it, but we actually invite you to stick around and talk to us about what you saw and continue the conversation that way, so we can help sort of catalyze some of that. And if I didn't say it already, which I don't know if I have, we are so lucky to be performing at the historic Attucks Theatre in Norfolk.
We're going to get right into that right
good,
after this.
because we should celebrate that place in all the ways.
We're going to talk right about that. Right. That's my next question. Now, if you're just joining us, we're talking about turning community conversations into live theater with the Inheritance Project. My guests are Navy veteran, certified doer, and podcaster Jackie Glass, Playmaker Zhailon Levingston, and theater artist, educator, and organizer Ariel Warmflash. Now let's go to Barbara Ham Lee in Pledge Central to see how we're doing with that $2,000 challenge.
Thank you, Lisa, and what a fabulous show to be able to sit back and to listen to what is going on. 1-800-940-7170. That's the number to call to become a member of WHRO. We're in our winter membership drive, and we have raised a little over $600. We got a ways to go in order to reach this $2,000 pledge. So I need you guys to come on and step up. Make us your Christmas present, okay?
That's a great idea.
Make us your holiday present.
I like that
really
analogy.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Very, very much. 1-800-940-2240. 1-800-940-7170. Too many numbers going through my head. In case you're wondering, why is Barbara talking about Pledge and not hosting the show today? We are talking about topics that may be in conflict with some of the consulting work that I do. And in order to stick with our journalistic standards and to make sure that we are a trusted journalistic organization, I stepped away to avoid conflict of interest. So, but that doesn't mean I can't ask you to become a member of WHRO Public Media, because we are the voice of Hampton Roads. We are the place you can go to find out about intriguing processes and intriguing things that are happening in our community that may not be happening anywhere else. This is home, and we are owned by you all, our members, and your dollars help support our programming. So please, we want to connect with you. We want you to join the family. We want you to come in. 1-800-940-7170, or you can go online to whro.org and make your pledge of support there. And Barry, we had Sherry Bailey call in, a mainstay.
Absolutely,
here, right?
We recognized right away. We recognized and knew who she was when she called in. And there you go. There's another example of this program reaching into the community. And we have people have been on the program, call back in and reconnect and show us how much that the program really is really valued inside the community. Where else but on public radio would you be getting such an in-depth discussion about a community event like this? Nowhere else. And I think Barbara is seeing that, how engaged we are in the conversation inside the control room here. We're just listening so intently and really involved with it in here. Now you see what goes on when you're hosting the show.
Exactly. Now I see the other side. Yes. Absolutely. 1-800-940-7170. It is so important to be able to have conversations like this because people want to connect, and we really want to connect with you. We have a $2,000 challenge. We've got to raise $2,000 $2,000 before 1 o'clock. So we've got a little less than 30 minutes to go. So we really need you all to call in, become a member now. If you are a sustainer, as Barry and Lisa and I are all sustainers, then and you want to maybe up your gift, we'd really appreciate that too.
We love that.
We love that.
Oh, yeah.
But whatever you can do to become a member to help support Another View. Right now, especially since Hearsay with Kathy Lewis is no longer on the air, we're the only local talk show that you can find out what's happening here in your community. And so join us, because we enjoy interacting with you every week. So if you listen to this show on a weekly basis and you go, I really need to become a member, now is the time. We only come to you 3 times a year. Do you know that? Only 3 times a year for 1 week each time to ask for your support, because your dollars are what pay for programs like Another View. So give us a call, 1-800-940-7170, or you can go to whro.org, and I'm going to send it back to Lisa.
Well, Barbara, we have we love our listeners right here in Hampton Roads. We have people that are listening to Another View all over the world.
Yes, we do.
I remember getting a text message through Messenger from somebody that was listening in Europe. So, thanks to the internet. So all of our listeners were asking you to support, because you wouldn't want us to go away, I know. So 1-800-940-7170. Don't let this opportunity pass you by to become a part of our family.
Absolutely. We've got that $2,000 challenge, and we have a little ways to go. So step up. Now is the time. 1-800-940-7170. And now let's go back to Another View.
Thank you, Barbara. Now, I want to know, and everybody can chime in on this, what impact does doing the play in a venue like the historic Attucks Theatre have on your process?
I mean, it is. There's almost, for me, not even words to explain how important I think it is to have it at a space where, so much of the themes that are coming out are around reclamation of stories and narratives and perspectives, and to be reclaiming a space for the community that was once really for the community. It's something that we learned in our studies, is that building is the last remaining, building from the original Church Street. And that is an unfortunate narrative that is around the country as it relates to historically Black communities. And so to be able to contribute in bringing back and pumping back a kind of authentic voice into that one specific street just feels like so spiritually gratifying, in terms of like the ancestors that inhabited that land, whose stories are still in that dirt, whose narratives have been lost by some, and to honor those who are still holding on to those narratives feels really important. And to, bring people back into the theater after such a long time not being able to be in the theater in general because of this pandemic. It's such an important civic place. If we go all the way back to the Greeks, it's one of the first places where democracy can exist, where there is a group voice that cuts through race and class and political affiliation. And so we hope to create that space there at the theater as well.
Yeah, it is. We're incredibly lucky with Denise Christian, who is sort of the helm of the current history of the Attucks, and she's an unbelievable gift to the community, and to that space. She brought it back to life in many ways. And when we got a tour from her, we actually were in September, and we came back again this year, and you walk on those boards and you can feel it. Zhailon said, ancestors, you can feel that. You can feel the energy. You can feel the magnetism in the space. And I think we are already a process that looks backwards in order to understand where we are now and where we're going. And to be in a space like the Attucks we could not have asked for a more perfect venue. And when we walked into that space the first time, it immediately started informing the play. So sometimes we don't know where we're performing. We're not always lucky to be connected with someone like the Virginia Arts Festival who knows exactly where we're going to be. And so to have access to that space, it has now become, because it is generative, that space is now part of the play, right? That we know where we're creating. We can create it for that space and bring in the history and the energy of that into the production we're making. And that's another really exciting part of devised theater.
Wonderful. Now, you all have met with quite a few very talented young people during this process. So tell me a little bit about your feelings and what you were able to glean from our youth here in Hampton Roads.
Kids are all right.
Oh, man.
The kids are all right.
And they're going to lead us, and I will follow them gladly.
Yeah, it's just been great to listen to their perspective of home, which can be as complicated as those of more, lived experiences as them, which I think is important to realize just how multi-generational this project has to be. I think sometimes unfairly, younger people get branded as maybe thinking in a much more simpler way about where they are, but we've heard some very sophisticated perspectives on what it means to be here, and have seen young people be able to hold both the beauty and the confusion of a place like this, and that's been really exciting.
And their fearlessness, right? I mean, y'all were at the salon on Tuesday with members of the Green Run iLab, and this was maybe 8 high school students in a room of 50, including council members and school board administrators and just a bunch of adults that they didn't know. And these students, I mean, y'all can speak to it. They were fearless. They were speaking their truths. And I don't know how often we as adults put ourselves in rooms to really listen to what young people are saying and have them guide us. And I think being able to do the intergenerational work of that is really important. And I also want to shout out Teens with Purpose, run by the incredible Deirdre Love. That space is, that is a space that young people run and make happen. And we were just so lucky to go in there. And then just yesterday, we were in the Governor's School in Norfolk for the theater students. And it's just everywhere we go, these teenagers are just sort of writing the play for us in their wisdom.
Yeah, and I don't think that's any different. I feel like sometimes it's forgotten that when we can look back to the civil rights movement and see the Children's Crusade, that was sort of almost a pushing over to getting the Voters' Rights Act that was done by thousands of little children little citizens, in Birmingham, Alabama. And I think that, we have to respect their gangster. And there comes a point where we start holding in our hands their lived experiences and ours. And I think that this generation, or at least the young people that I saw on Tuesday, are unafraid to speak their truth for the sake of, I don't know what they're going to say. Because I know it's like, you better watch your mouth, and children are to be seen and not heard, right? There's that. And they're like, well, yeah, I hear you, but I'm still living. So let's be a part. This world is my world too, right? Like we're supposed to preserve it, to hand it over. And I want you to hand me over something good. That's kind of what their life's not playing about. So it's a beautiful thing.
I remember hearing one of the students from Green Run talking about how, it's like adults don't hear us or they don't want our opinion. And I was just like, oh my gosh, wow. Hadn't thought about that you all are feeling that way, And I just, oh wow, it was just an amazing experience.
Yeah, it was super cool.
And that's sort of what we hope for in these rooms. I mean, we say we bring unconnected neighbors together, but you could be living right next to somebody and not know what they think. You could live right next to a high school and never talk to the young people there. And so it's really an incredible gift of this work to bring folks in who wouldn't normally be in a room together. And
that's what theater does.
Yeah.
That's what theater does at its best. It's people in the dark watching people in the light. And we get to decide who gets to be in the light, right? That's the choice we get to make. And, this generation is primed and ready to be in the light. And I think it is our responsibility to let them shine. And, with all the resources that we can to make that happen.
Or they gonna come with their flashlight.
Oh yeah.
Not playing with you.
Oh, yeah.
What you guys are doing, at least from an outsider watching in and being a part of a process I'm sitting here scribbling as you're talking because it's so profound. It reminds me of like the ostrich effect. Have you heard of it? It's our bias to not walk towards things that may be unpleasant. Mm-hmm. It's a natural thing, so we've got this perception about ostriches and their heads in the sand. But when all actuality, the full story of the ostrich is that they're rotating their eggs in the ground for heat. And so they've been slandered for all these years until we get the full story of it. And I think part of this process is what you guys are doing is something I think communities want is center us. Mm-hmm. And then allow the story to come to the fold. Policy making, center us as a community and allow the story to be told. So put us first. So I'm just grateful for hopefully what this process does as people come on the other end of viewing this beauty that'll happen in May.
And something I think about a lot is just like those who are most directly impacted by the issues that are coming up. Those are the people who know the most about those issues. And so, theater being this organizing principle that gets to bring us together around those who have been directly impacted by these narratives. And so to me, that's the formula for a kind of artistic integrity that is needed to actually make impact happen, right? We could interview a few people, go away to our lab and just try to do whatever we want to do and come back and create something probably entertaining. But it would probably be one side of the situation. And to be able to create a kind of prism of perspective, I think is the kind of complexity and nuance that is like missing in most of our mass media right now. And this is what we have the opportunity to do with this is why theater will never go away, is because it is that opportunity for us to come together and bear witness to life's complexity.
And with our work in particular, there's an accountability to the people because we're inviting folks in at every step. So if we start making a scene or sharing a scene and it doesn't feel authentic, someone's going to tell us and we're going to take that information. We're not going to say like, no, but this is the way we did it. We're going to change it, or we're going to use that and put it in. We can get a little meta in our work sometimes. So, because it's how do you hold the complexity of two opposing narratives? How do you hold the fact that multiple people have multiple truths and sometimes they don't sit nicely together? Doesn't mean any of them aren't true. It just means that folks are experiencing things differently. And how do you show that prism on stage? It's a challenge, but it's also a delight. It's a puzzle. It's a puzzle in a lot of ways.
Use the example of HEIR that I remember seeing on the online.
Yes, I'm happy to share that
video that I watched.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for you did your research, Lisa. You're so good. So we were creating a play called the Sarah Play. Our first series of plays were looking at the book of Genesis, specifically looking at characters in the book. The fifth and final play in that series was in Kansas City. It was called the Sarah Play. So we're looking at this matriarch, Sarah, the wife of Abraham. She has this very long and complicated his story. And also in that Abraham and Sarah story is the handmaid or the worker or the slave or however you understand her to be, named Hagar or Hagar, depending on where you're from. And while we were creating scenes, we had started creating the language, and we had 2 actresses cast at the moment. But like Zhailon said earlier, we didn't know who was playing who. We just had cast 2 actresses, one black woman and one white woman. And as we're in front of a group of people, we had open rehearsals, as I mentioned earlier, in a couple of different spaces. The first space we did it in was in a synagogue, and we had the black woman read for Hagar and the white woman read for Sarah, and that was just it was the opposite. Oh, no, it wasn't. Sorry. The black woman read for Hagar, the white woman read for Sarah. And a woman in that congregation raised her hand and says, this feels racist because you're casting the black woman as the slave. You're casting the black woman as the servant or the person who's below. And I don't feel comfortable with that. Okay, so we hold that information and we do our open rehearsal again. This time we're in a church which has a larger black population. And this time we have the black woman read for Sarah and the white woman read for Hagar. Just to change it up, right? Nothing is set in stone. And in this space, a black woman raises her hand and says, that white woman should not be playing Hagar. That is not the truth. She was an African woman. She was Egyptian. She should be played by the Black woman. It is inappropriate for it to be played by a white woman. So there we go, right? 2 of those in the same place. And how do you rectify that in the play? You put that right in. So that scene happened in which the 2 actresses on stage, that play was sort of a meta play within a play, or watching a play come together. But the actresses on stage had that conversation. No, I should play Hagar because I'm the Black woman. No, I should play Hagar because you're Black, and that would be really inappropriate. And so rather than trying to answer that question, to which there is no right answer, end quote, we put that in the work and we put that in the play. And I'll tell you that later on, both of those people who said that came to us and said, thank you for putting what I said in the play. Thank you for putting that in there. So rather than solving the questions that we don't really have any answers to, we open them back up. And like Zhailon said, to continue the conversation after we go.
Zhailon, you ready for pushback or?
Come on, I got it. 6 years of martial arts. Pushback, let's do it.
Okay, now you all met with the folks, Virginia Museum of Contemporary Art, as we call it, MoCA.
Yeah.
And that was all artists. So that should have been a pretty interesting community conversation.
The artists you have in this community are unreal. And like Zhailon was saying, with theater, the oldest art form, it also holds space for so many different artists and art forms. So yeah, we were hosted by Virginia MoCA, but also in relationship with Utopia Fenny, with the Vibe District, with the public works sector of the Virginia Stage Company. And so all of those brought folks in, and we had like 50 or so people in this room. And people were from all over and had all different experiences, but there was a commonality of artistry. And so that's also not just getting that information, but that's also how we start meeting folks who could be a part of our process. I mean, I'll tell you, I've got emails in my account that I have to reply to, so apologies if you're listening to this and I owe you an email, of folks who got involved, who came to that one event and now want to stay involved. And we love that, because we love inviting local artists in, because that work is already happening. And once we go, those artists are still here to shepherd their communities in the way that we know and believe that art can. So, I mean, the amount of talent in this region is incredible. And we are so lucky to have met with what I imagine is just sort of the tip of the iceberg of that community.
Okay, well, we're glad you're here. Jackie, I have a question for you. How important is it to you to be a part of this process?
I don't know you can quantify it, just because I think the most impactful side of this is that this is forward leaning. There's a lot of foresight how do I put this, is that I know that just from being in the presence of Ari and Zhailon and the other folks working on this, is that this isn't just about this moment. And as somebody who's going to be here long after their presence, I feel like there's sort of an anticipatory sort of, okay, so when we get this fruit, when they plant this tree and it starts yielding fruit, like who's going to pick with us, right? Like, because this seed, we know that they're dropping some amazing seeds already, just from the little conversation. How long were we in that room?
An hour and a half.
And I can tell you, it felt like a minute. It was just every minute was something new. And so I look at those moments that each moment that's planted in these individuals who I have no idea who they are. Some of them, never met, we've never exchanged, but there was a sentiment in the room that I'm hoping that carries after this, the way, with the intent that they're doing it now, I know it'll be there. So I feel like it is so important that if, not just that I'm a part of it, but that anybody that hasn't taken the opportunity to try this pie.
I love that analogy of the planting the fruit and the question of who's going to pick this with us. And I think that's the charge of the project, is once we leave, who's going to pick that fruit?
Yeah.
Who's going to plant that second tree?
Mm-hmm.
And who are you going to share it with, who you haven't maybe shared it with before?
What you going to make with it?
What are you going to make with? I mean, all of these questions to me are much more interesting than even the questions that build up to make a play. We make a play so that these fascinating questions could come out of the thing,
Yeah. It's so interesting you said that. We were at Fort Monroe when we saw Algernon Oak, which a sapling from that oak is the Emancipation Oak. Mm-hmm. And so it's beautiful that you're already that history already exists here. These trees that beget trees of liberation and hope and emancipation. And I know if Jackie's here on the ground, then our the fruit that comes from this will be in excellent hands, because there are people like you, Jackie, and like that we have met who are doing this work, who are on the ground, who are making changes in their community. And it is a gift just to be a part of that and support that work. Because we could not do what we do without the people who put in the time on the ground, who live here, who this is their community. And so, I mean, it is the Jackies of the region that make the process so wonderful.
But they're making some things that are unseen seen. And I think that's part of the work that you see all these folks is like sometimes art is the only way to connect that dot. Mm-hmm. And so like I'm excited for the unseen things that come from this, so that people like myself and many others, like you said, can do the work from with another tool. Mm-hmm. Like this now, this art form becomes another tool, the tool belt to do and expand the work that we do. Mm-hmm. So thanks for the invitations. Yes. And hammers and nails.
Well, we have about 3 minutes left, and I want you all to each take a little bit of time and explain to people why they should participate, why they should be a part of it.
Why should you participate? Because we are creating something that is of you. And I think it's important that, as Jackie said, we are inviting folks to tell their truth. And we promise to hold it as gently and delicately as we can, and to raise it up. And so I think often people who don't feel heard or don't feel seen, this is a space where we're asking you to show up, and we see you and we want to see you. And so I know it can be intimidating to show up into a space of strangers or to show up to something that you don't really know what you're getting yourself into, but it is the beauty of the interactions of those people and the beginning of building bridges between strangers and turning them into neighbors and then hopefully friends and coalitions, right? That is where our work lies. So come join us if you are interested in being a part of the coalition.
Yeah, I think nationally we live in a very kind of existential time where concepts like hope and togetherness and fear and justice feel very elusive, and it is the theater's job to make these elusive concepts material. And so I would say if you actually want to put hope in your purse, put justice in your pocket, and carry it out into the world, come be a part of this, because this technology as old as time is here for you to actually bridge some of these divides. Come with a kind of rigorous mindset to actually bring something together, which is unfortunately quite rare in the time that we're living in. And
I think each person's perspective is a stroke on a more complete picture, right? So like if it's an opportunity just to, if you come with your pencil, if you come with your paintbrush, if you come with your fingerprints, come as you are, but whatever you decide to put into it, even if it's a little pinky dot in the left corner, that it adds value to something that'll help our community in the long run. So opportunity, don't miss it.
And if you don't have any paints, come on down anyway. We'll give them to you.
That too.
We'll share it. And I also have to say before we wrap up, we are so lucky to have so many incredible partners on the ground, but one of the main reasons we are here is with the support of the Virginia Humanities and the Hampton Roads Community Foundation and their Beneath the Surface grant, which is really, really looking to invest back in the community. And so it's incredibly lucky to be partnered with them and also with the Virginia Arts Festival to bring this to life.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. And if you want to be a part of this project, there is a salon tonight, so you won't want to miss it. It's going to be at the Robin Hickson Theatre, 440 Bank Street in downtown Norfolk. It is free and open to the public. There will be food, but you do have to RSVP, and you can do so at info@vafest.org. That's info@vafest.org. Thank you all so very, very much for being our guests today. Wow, what an incredible conversation. I really appreciate you all coming in here and sharing and letting our community know what's going on with the Inheritance Project. Barbara, how are we?
HEIR.
HEIR, right. Barbara, how are we doing in Pledge Central?
Well, we have 8 pledges. We're at $1,294. So we've got about 3 minutes, folks, to get to that $2,000. I know we can do this because I believe in each of you who are sitting there listening right now. Go to WHRO.org, make your pledge of support Another View so that we can continue to bring you the kind of information programming that you have become used to hearing every Thursday at noon. 1-800-940-7170 is the number to call to join our conversation and to make your pledge of support. And you know what? This time we actually have people in Pledge Central to answer the phones. So you actually get to talk to real people when you're making your pledge of support. Please join us. And Lisa, you can close it out.
Yeah, there's money on the table, folks. We have a match, so help us get there. Thank you so very much. If you like today's broadcast, you enjoyed it, you want to share it with a friend, you can log on to our website at anotherviewradio.org. There you can also sign up for our weekly newsletter and find out what's happening each week. Our theme music was composed just for Another View by Jay Sennett. Todd Washburn is our audio engineer. Dr. Barry Graham answered our phones. I'm Lisa Godley, and Barbara will be back in the host chair next week with Dr. Keith Newby when he returns to talk about the new Omicron variant. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next Thursday on Another View.
Support comes from Thomas Nelson Community College, now becoming Virginia Peninsula Community College, the first choice to start a bachelor's degree since tuition is 1/3 the cost of 4-year schools. More at tncc.edu.
Support comes from Hampton Roads Community Foundation, carrying out your charitable wishes forever. Whether it's helping shelter animals, feeding the homeless, enhancing the arts, or supporting students. Learn more at leaveabequest.org.